Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. Today is Wednesday, and on Wednesdays I do my Q&A video where I basically answer your questions. And I have some really awesome questions this week. This is going to be awesome. I'm really excited actually to answer one of these questions. I'm so excited, actually, I'm going to answer one of the questions, like I have all the questions here, but was asked by two members, and I have to give a little background behind why they asked this question. So it's kind of a weird story, but my family decided to ignore me. I don't know why. They just didn't want to hang out. My wife went off with her sister and they hung out. And my children, they were just playing video games. And I was bored. I was like, I'm bored. So I figured, hey, what better thing to do when you're bored but to do a live stream? So I did a live stream. And, I was just talking about comics on the live stream, and people were asking me questions. And somebody asked me about what comic is the first Precode horror comic. So then I said, okay, well, I'll answer that question, but give me till Wednesday, to give a proper answer. And I actually, on the live stream, I gave the right answer, believe it or not, which is unusual for me to actually give the right answer. But I'm going to... So two people actually who were watching the live stream wrote me the same question, and I'll read it. Black Box Silver and Bronze wrote, on your live stream you said to put this question here. What is the first Precode horror comic? Eerie #1, Punch Comics 11, or something else? And James P. wrote, what is the first Precode horror comic as discussed in the live stream? So now we get into the fun part. Okay, so I was saying in the live stream that it was Eerie #1. Now, there's a bit of a preamble in order to explain why I said that that particular book. Now, there's actually an earlier book that is a book that is horror related, which is classics, classic comics with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Okay, that book is the first horror comic where it was devoted specifically to horror, and it was from 1943. Okay, that's the first horror devoted comic. But it was really just a story that was a horror-based story. It wasn't that the comic book run was devoted to horror. It was just that one particular comic. When Eerie #1 came out, it was a comic that was totally devoted to horror. It was a horror title. And it was a comic that the whole story was about horror. Okay, so that made it the first comic to be a Precode horror comic, okay, if that makes sense. And that was from 1947. In between those two periods, there was a series of comics called Punch Comics. And some of the Punch comics have what are considered to be some of the best Precode horror comics. Covers. Okay, so for example, Punch Comics 12 has a very famous skull cover. It's like this giant skull, and people are like laying out of it, like they're like out of the eye socket, they're dead and they're shot and stuff like that. And another one, which is Punch Comics 11, which is the one that Swaggelhaus referred to as being the first Precode horror comic. He said that, 11 must be the first Precode horror comic. And the reason he said that is it's a kind of a cool cover with a skull like in the corner and like all these figures in different colors. Like there's silhouettes of figures in different colors. And, those are kind of two very famous, what's called Precode horror covers. But there's an earlier one within the Punch comics that is number 7, I believe, where it is an illustrator, and he's like being stabbed by these little characters that he's created. And, it's like a cartoonist basically getting killed by his characters. So you think, that's the first, that's earlier Punch comic, that must be the first Precode horror. Well, actually, all of those aren't Precode horror. What? You might be asking, why aren't they Precode horror? They have a horror cover or horror themed cover. Well, they aren't. They aren't at all horror at all. All of them are detective books. If you actually open up any Punch comic, and I'll show you a few, I showed some in the last thing. You'll see here's one that you think, oh, this looks like Precode horror. It's got a skeleton hand, got a woman, graveyard, must be Precode horror. And if you look at this one from Punch Comics, oh, it's like superhero. He's got like laser beam eyes like Cyclops. Okay. And then if you look at this one, you think, oh, look, it's cartoony. It's like very cartoony. It must be cartoon comics. Well, these are all Punch Comics. And Punch Comics was all over the place. However, if you open up one of the Punch Comics, you'll see that their insides are just like the outsides. Sometimes they'll have stories that are cartoon related. Other times they'll have superhero related stories. And then other times they'll have detective kind of mystery and, shoot 'em ups with like police and bad guys and stuff like that. So those are the three kind of stories that they always had inside. And they just rotated what covers would be the thing. They didn't really have a consistent theme inside of these Punch comics. So the point is, none of those themes were horror. They didn't have they didn't really touch on horror. It wasn't what they were interested in. They were interested in crime. They were interested in cartoon, and they were interested in superhero. Those were the three things that they really did focus on. So they were not considered Precode horror comics. So that's, I think, where the confusion lies with that story. And it was really Eerie #1. That was the first book that was a series devoted to horror comics. And it actually ended there. It was only a one-shot. It ended up being a one-shot. They didn't do Eerie #2, and it was re-released later on. But that's the first Precode horror comic from 1947. Now, these Punch comics are actually from 1944, and 45 is from the one with the skull. So I hope you found that to be an interesting answer. I wasn't 100% confident when I did the live stream because, it's like just a question that people asked, and I gave my gut reaction, which was the Eerie #1, but turns out I was right. So I'm quite happy. I'm always happy when I'm actually right about something. It's always useful. So I hope you enjoyed that answer, and it gave a little bit of insight into Precode horror. Okay, the next question comes from Night Tiger Comics. He wrote, Rula, 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 because last week I showed my Rula collection. And here's my question, he wrote. Do you have any Marvel 35-cent variants? If so, which ones? None. I don't have any. I do know some people that have like a complete collection of 35-cent variants, but I have none. I never actually had the opportunity to buy a 35-cent price variant, so I just never got them in my collection. And knowing me, I would never buy a 35-cent price variant unless it was the same price or cheap. Like if I could get it cheap, I'd totally buy it. But because they usually command a huge premium. So for example, Star Wars #1 had a 30-cent price and a 35-cent price. The 35-cent price one is a massively expensive book. It is considered to be one of the most expensive books of the Bronze Age. It's just a huge book in terms of price. And you're probably wondering, why did they do the 35-cent price variant? Well, what they would do is there was inflation, and with inflation, you want to release a book, but not scare off your market, right? So you got to test the waters. So what they would do is they would do a small release with that in like some test market, and they would release that book and see what the reception was. Did people stop buying it because the price was too high, or did they keep buy it anyways, regardless of the price? So they would always do a test market, and that's what the 35-cent price variants were. We're just testing the market to see if if it would still sell. But yeah, I don't have any in my collection, sadly enough. Okay, Ragman Comics, which is my friend Falco, he wrote, hey, can you show off a completed series that you have? Please, no limited series such as Wolverine 1 through 4. Okay, so I brought a rather cool series to show off to you guys. It's a series that I was super happy to get the whole collection. And it's considered to be one of the like more sought after golden age pre-code horror. Now we understand pre-code horror comics that came out before the code. Comic series, and it's called Ghost Comics. Now, Ghost Comics is a brilliant series because it features the cover art by Maurice Whitman, and I'm a big fan of Maurice Whitman. So, and he did all the covers. So this is Ghost Comics number 1, and Ghost Comics ran for 11 issues, and it was from Fiction House. Just a really great series of comics. Then my favorite cover is number 2. I like this lingerie cover. This is Ghost Comics number 2. Then we got Ghost Comics number 3. It's a really great cover. So, as I said, Maurice Whitman is a brilliant artist, and these are some of his finest works, these Ghost Comics. This is one that most people like as well. This is Ghost Comics number 4. And the first Ghost Comics that I actually bought was this one. I always thought this one was cool too. I like the multi-armed women. This is Ghost Comics number 5. I'm not sure if it's... I always have to kind of angle it at a weird angle so that it doesn't reflect the light. So this is Ghost Comics number 5. And this is one of the craziest covers, actually, from the Ghost Comics series. It has, like, so many different ways of dying. It's all these, like, people that, like, he's gotten hung. He's, like, drowned. I don't know what's happened to this girl. I think she was strangled. Just, like, a whole bunch of different ways. And then we got this crazy mad scientist working on this woman down below. It's a really great cover. This is number 7. And I skipped number 6, but I have it right here, number 6. And number 6, just for those people who are not familiar with Ghost Comics, is the one that is considered the grail of the run. Most people chase after this book. It's one of those good girl art covers, bondage cover, and just considered to be one of the better covers from the run. But personally, I like number 2 better. But this is the one most people go after, number 6. And then we get into, I have a really low grade copy of this one, number 8. Like, missing a huge piece. Other than the fact that the piece is missing, it's still a cool cover. This is Ghost Comics number 8. And then we get Ghost Comics number 9. It's not one of my favorite in the run, but interesting cover. Bondage cover. And then we get Ghost Comics number 10. I think this one's kind of interesting. Skeleton and the woman running through the mist. And Ghost Comics number 11. Last in the series. So yeah, so that's the run of Ghost Comics. It only ran for 11 issues. It's a great series in terms of like the cover art and the fact that it features the artwork of Maurice Whitman, which is awesome. And it's one that I was really excited to finally get that as a completed run of comics in my collection. Okay, so that has been my my completed series one. You can ask me again if you want to see another completed series, Falco. So you can ask me again, and I'll show another series. Next question comes from Lone Wolf and Comics. I just subscribed. I would love to submit a question for next Wednesday. What are your favorite covers from Captain Marvel Adventures? Also, do you have any issues of the short 6-issue run of Blazing Comics from Rural House featuring the Green Turtle? I personally only need the 2nd issue to complete the Golden Age run. I have nothing from Blazing Comics. I just never collected that series. I am familiar with it, but I just never collected it. It just wasn't one that I had. But I'm going to show you some great Fawcett Captain Marvel-ish books and some Captain Marvel. So I wanted to show a little bit of variety in this. But I'm going to start with the non-Captain Marvel, if that makes sense. And then I'll show you my Captain Marvel. One sec here. So I always like when you can see the whole team of any characters. For example, if it's X-Men, like I always like to see them all on the cover and stuff like that. That's why I like X-Men #1 as a cover. But this is a Captain Marvel family. So one of the things with Captain Marvel, it's like, it's a family thing. You get the whole team here. I kind of like that. I like the fact that the Wizard's there as well. So it's also the first appearance of Black Adam. So kind of a cool book. This is Marvel Family #1. I really like this, not only for the coolness of the the first appearance, but for the fact that it is a cool cover. And another thing that I really enjoy is Infinity covers. So this is a really great Mary Marvel Infinity cover. You got all that, and it's like this kind of V for Victory. I just really like this with all of them standing up there, and it's a nice Infinity cover and a V for Victory kind of cover. Just really kind of cool book. So this is WoW Comics #18. And this is actually the first appearance of Uncle Marvel as well, so it's another kind of cool first appearance, but it's also a great cover. So I just really enjoyed that one. And I'm going to show you another. I really like Mary Marvel, so you gotta kind of work with me on that one. But yeah, this is got Captain Marvel there. This is Mary Marvel #1. I really like this cover. So Mary Marvel #1. Just a great cover, and Mary Marvel #1. And now we get into the actual Captain Marvel comics. So I kind of needed to show you some of those in order to make you understand why I like the next one that I'm going to show you so much. So this is again, I like seeing the team. This is a painted cover. This is a CC Beck cover. Just a really great cover. And this is the first appearance of Mary Marvel. I love this cover for all those reasons. So the fact that she's on the cover like this in her first appearance, I think it's really great. This is Captain Marvel Adventures #18. Just I love this cover. And I like on the back, you got Captain Marvel Jr. and Bullet Girl. I just think that's great too. So, and then I really like first appearances, and I like when the first appearance has them on the cover. So this is the first appearance of Mr. Atom, this dude up here. So I just really like these kind of first appearances. I'll show it a bit better. Let's see if that makes it a little bit easier to see. But I think this is a really great cover. I like also those covers where you got the bad guy and the hero's taking charge. He's running into action to fight against the bad guy. I kind of like that, or flying in, or whatever it is. But I enjoy this kind of cover. So, and it's really great. If you look at the robot's hand, he's got this poor guy in his hand. So I think that's really cool. Just a really great cover. So that's another CC Beck cover. CC Beck did a lot of Captain Marvel covers. And we got Captain Marvel Adventures 27. This is just a kind of patriotic cover. Got the sailor and, you know, Captain Marvel, you know, in front of the star, and just a really great cover. And he's throwing the missile. I think that's kind of cool. So that's Captain Marvel Adventures number 27. And the last one, or actually I have two more to show. Actually, I should have shown this earlier. This is not Captain Marvel, but it's Wiz Comics. So this is Wiz Comics number 71. This is actually one of my favorite covers. I love this kind of magic like covers. I think I've shown this so many times because I like it so much. I just think it's a really great cover, especially because it's not just like the typical rabbit jumping out of the hat, but he's got all these other animals as if he's trying to like get the right animal to jump out of the thing. He's got a penguin, a cat, monkey, like just a bird, like, you know, just so many kind of crazy things coming out of this hat. And he's like probably trying to get that rabbit to come out, but failing. So I kind of like this one. Really great. And so that's Wiz Comics 71. And this one is really great too. I like wedding covers when it's like, you know, the superhero marries somebody, you know, it's like those kind of covers. Actually, I kind of like those covers. So this is Captain Marvel Adventures number 150. And believe it or not, this is actually the last issue of the run. So, you know, this is where they ended. The Captain Marvel Adventures number 150. So just kind of interesting. It's also the wedding cover. So that is my Captain Marvel Adventures. I have a ton more, actually, of Captain Marvel Adventures. I have a box of just all my Captain Marvel Adventures. And I have just a big collection of Captain Marvel Adventures. But those are some of my favorites from my collection. I usually actually, outside of this room, I actually put them as a kind of a display. Just for Captain Marvel. I really like Captain Marvel that much. So yeah, so that's that one. The last question is this one. Do you collect Transformers? Yes, no, sort of. So I have a copy of Transformers number 1. And I can't reach it. It's up there. I was going to grab it. I was thinking, should I grab it and just show it? But yeah, I have a copy. It was a raw copy that I bought. And I got it graded. And it was graded at a 5.0, which is not a great copy. But I didn't pay much for it, so I can't really complain. But I don't really collect Transformers. And there's a bit of a story behind that. But I always loved Transformers in a way. You know, in grade 6, I remember all my friends had the Transformers. They all had these cool things, and they'd kind of like make them, and it was just, I was like, oh, that's really cool. But my parents didn't let me have them. So I didn't get them. I didn't have Transformers. So I was sad about that. So I did buy a few Transformers later, like knockoffs, I guess they would be. But I never really formally collected Transformers, the toys or the comics. So I did get, like, just because of nostalgia, I bought like a copy of Transformers number 1, but I never really collected any of the other books from Transformers or the toys. So kind of weird, but I hope that answers the question. So I can appreciate people that do collect Transformers, because I do have some nostalgia towards them. So thanks for watching, everyone. That's this video. I hope you enjoyed my explanation of Precode horror. For those people who are not familiar, like, Precode horror just means anything before the Comic Code Authority takes place. So anything prior to that, that's horror. You know, that's Precode. It's easy to define the end, because once the code comes into play, that's the end of Precode. That's the beginning of that's the end of Precode, and anything, and then, but it's always hard to determine that first Precode horror comic. And the kind of the consensus is that Eerie #1 is that first Precode horror comic. So I hope my explanation in prior to this was pretty concise, and I hope you enjoyed it. So thanks again for watching. If you have a question you would like to ask me, please put it in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer it. Thanks again. Bye for now.